I see people, I think, in my view, suffering so much when they don't really need to suffer. And um, the rates of suicide are, on the rise. It's just, there's so much sadness around when it's not necessary. It really isn't. And so when I spoke about solitude, I feel like I should add to that solitude within a community. I'm big on bringing community back to, the 21st century. Hi, my name is Luella Young. I'm a psychotherapist and coach. And if you're interested in how your lifestyle is affecting your mental health, then you're at the right place. On this show, I interview various guests from across the miles and share how their lifestyle choices affects their sense of self, their wealth, and most importantly, their health. Enjoy the show. Hello. So today I'm recording on April 22nd, and it's Earth Day. So happy Earth Day to everyone out there. I think there's no better place in the world to be than in nature. So I hope that everybody's doing their part to keep our world as beautiful as it is right now and to appreciate what we have every single day. And, speaking of appreciation and gratitude, that's something that I do practice each day because to me, that keeps me very humble and as whole as I possibly can. It it reminds me of everything that I have so that I don't continue to long for something else that I think is going to make me happier. And nowadays in this world, you know what? I think we hear a lot about the whole idea of abundance and what it means to be abundant and what it means to be happy. I mean, there's nothing that you need to do in order to feel abundance because abundance is around us every single day. It really is. There's nothing that I think in the modern world, in North America, in most of the world, we have access to much of the things that we need. And for those countries where they don't, you know what? I sometimes question if they're, okay, I'm not speaking about war driven countries. I'm speaking about, you know, countries where maybe fresh water is not always accessible or fresh air, things like that. Sometimes I question if they are actually less happy than we are because you know what? On those days where they do get hot showers, on those days where they can jump into fresh, cold water on a steaming hot day, on those days where they feel, a cool, fresh breeze on their face, I think they are more apt to be, feeling gratitude because in our world right now in North America and in modern world there is so much abundance around us that we have normalized it, and because we've normalized it we're not thankful for it as much as we should be. And I think this is one of the leading causes to the state of unhappiness that most of us feel, uh, or emptiness. And maybe I shouldn't say most of us. Maybe it's just because I see people so much when they're struggling. And often it relates to like not knowing, you know, I don't know, just like this identity crisis that a lot of people are facing as well. Like, who am I? And I mean, it's the age old, question that I think many of us have had. It's sort of the search for meaning, the search for purpose. Um, but I don't think we have to search if we actually just clear ourselves of all the materialistic things in our life and go back to the basics like what I said, clean air, clean water, having the ability, like having our health, having the ability to move our bodies every day, um you know connecting deep within ourselves and in connection with others, um and not even, I don't feel like we even, and this, a lot of people might disagree, but I don't feel like we actually even need to um have like multiple like social relationships in order to feel happy either. Like, I think this whole idea of socializing and being social is a bit overrated as well. I think there's a lot to be said about solitude and being, in solitude, because that's when the noise drops and we can actually go deep within ourselves and discover more and more about who we are, and really knowing that everything we want is right in front of us right now, and to find, like I said before, that wholeness within. I hope this is not sounding too esoteric. It's just, I guess I see people, I think, in my view, suffering so much when they don't really need to suffer. And um, the rates of suicide are, on the rise. It's just, so there's so much sadness around when it's not necessary. It really isn't. Um, and so when I spoke about solitude, I feel like I should add to that solitude within a community. I'm big on bringing community back to, the 21st century. Like, I mean, I I grew up in a very small town in Manitoba, and you know, I I I tell a lot of people, and I still have to laugh about it, that when I reached that age of 18 and I spread my wings and I went into the big city, and went to university, and I started meeting different people from all different walks of life, most of who are still my best friends. And I've said this over and over too, like my university years, my bachelor years were the best years of my life. Um, and I can remember thinking like, oh my goodness, these people are not Roman Catholic, and they're still very nice people. Like, I lived in such a closed bubble in that small little community, which was mostly Flemish and French, ancestry and backgrounds. Uh, and it was just Yeah, I mean, I was just surrounded by Roman Catholics, and I just thought that was the only religion. And but it what I the reason why I bring this up is that a couple of things is community is so important. Um, and also I feel that nowadays people have replaced religion with this whole idea of being successful. And they're chasing success, perhaps slash happiness, when really, they're chasing like source or, this idea of a creator, or a higher power. They've lost touch with that. They've lost touch to a greater being, and they think it's in success, whatever that means, or this idea of becoming abundant. And I'm not saying that, religion is necessarily the answer. For some, they feel that, source is God, is their God. Um, I don't, I mean, I believe in religion, like spirituality as much as I do religion. I just think it's a different branch of finding peace in your life. In other words, some people might say meditation is the way of them feeling grounded and feeling they're more connected to the earth, to source, um, a greater being, a greater wholeness. But I kind of wonder sometimes about, meditation just being very trendy these last um, few years, and everybody thinks meditation is their answer to happiness. It's just like people are chasing something. I don't know what they're chasing. And I believe me, I don't pretend to be, this enlightened human being now. And I have my days. Believe me, I have my days. But this is why I'm talking about this today, so that, we can all search deeper inside of us through solitude and discover our happiness within. So I mentioned that, um, community being so strong. And so solitude and being okay being alone, I feel is very important to shut out the noise. But within solitude, it is very important to know that you do have a community. You do know, even if it's one person, has your back. And um, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship either. It can be anybody within your circle, anybody within your community. Um, that if you're in need, that someone has your back. I mean, think about even the veterans, even like all the soldiers that have gone to war. I mean, I think what we see there is that they've obtained some sort of brotherhood, right? Like, and my husband just retired from firefighting, and I know that's something that he possibly the only thing that he misses besides some great meals is that sense of community, is that sense of brotherhood, is that sense of someone out there has my back. And, you know, last week, um, he went to a funeral of one of the firefighters who committed suicide, someone who, um, no one expected. No one, like no one. So this is the other thing too, that we think we think uh, you know, people are happy because they appear happy on the outside, but no one knows. No one knows the suffering that someone has with from within. And maybe it's the work that I do. I never look at someone who has all the glitter, and suspect that they've or presumed or assumed that they're happy. I would never presume that, because it's the materialistic wealth will never bring you happiness. We all know that. Um, so what does? That's my question. What do you think is your happiness and your way of getting there? I don't have the answers for you. All I know is that I do feel solitude is extremely important so you can quote unquote do the work. And I often have many men ask me, what exactly is the work? I hear about this a lot. I think women do spend a little bit more time in this sort of deep contemplative thought than men possibly do. And but men, I would just encourage you to uh, go within and go on the path of self-discovery and get comfortable doing that. Um, do not distract yourself from doing that. Spend a lot of time alone. Spend a lot of time in nature, fishing, being with your friends, whatever that might be, walking through the bush, hunting. I don't know. It's sounding stereotypic what I'm saying right now, but it's true. Or walking along the golf course, like whatever that is. Um, sitting in your tractor, working the fields. Um, I and like, this is again part of modern society. We used to spend a lot of time in solitude, right? A lot of time in solitude because we had these great distances between us. Um, and it wasn't easy to get out and reach somebody else. It often took a lot of effort to do that, even to simply go visit your neighbor. You know, was it an hour of walking? Was it hooking up um, the horses and the carriages and all of that stuff? I mean, I I do think that, as much as the internet has given us and technology nowadays, the way it's advanced, it's given us so much. It also has made us become addicted to this, you know, to getting information and um, being able to see what everybody else is doing and therefore comparing ourselves to everyone else out there and measuring ourselves up against everyone when we don't have to look anywhere except from within to find our happiness. And bring it back to romantic relationships as well. Um, I often feel that couples come and they say, um, I they don't say this, but I can see that they've married somebody to sort of complete them. And in many ways, that's true. And I often say that, you're one half of a whole, and together, your your partner can make up for your weaknesses and your strengths can make up for your partner weaknesses. And it works very well if it's done right. But then there's these other couples who have so much, I'm going to say, emptiness within them, almost like, holes, like emptiness, like holes, not wholeness, but actual holes. And they're looking towards their partner to fill those holes in some way. And I think that's where the problem starts. They're expecting this other person to heal their deeper wounds when the only person that can heal their wounds are themselves. Their partner can't do it. And the other part of that is wanting this other person to change so that you're happier. That's not their job, um, to change for you. And we all know the only motivation that will actually allow you to change is the motivation from within. So, whether or not you have an unfavorable behavior, it's up to you to acknowledge that behavior through self-awareness, through being in the present, and through doing the work, and then wanting to change because of your deeper why, because of the vision of who you want to become that is attached to your why, that is attached to how you see yourself as a person. So, yeah, kind of deep stuff, right? It's a little deep, but I think it's sort of a conversation that I wanted to bring out today, just because of the busyness I see and this whole the lack, I guess, of people doing the work, the lack of self-awareness out there, the lack of happiness simply because of their busy lives. They're so busy that they don't see what they all have. They don't see the abundance. And the other thing too, I wanted to mention is that, with the internet being the way it is right now, and this, like, how we've become infomivores. I don't know how to pronounce that, but, like, how you have carnivore, well, informavore, put it that way. This is sort of like my craving for information, or this ability to obtain information so easily. I mean, and I love it. Like, I mean, I love words. So for me to get on my phone and, hey Siri, what's the definition of blah, blah, blah? And I'm just waiting for my phone to answer. Probably will. Yeah. Anyway, I love that, right? Like, I mean, you don't have to you don't have to walk into like another room. You don't have to pull down the encyclopedia and, flip the pages and find it, like, I mean, or the dictionary or whatever. Although, you know what? I do think about my childhood. I do think about going into our living room. I can still see the bookcase in front of me with the Britannica encyclopedia, in front of me, pulling down, the W. And I'm not saying this was specifically what I did, but like to look up a whale, right? And see all the different types of whales and to read about that and look at the pictures. Maybe because the night before I came across the book Moby Dick. Like, I mean, there's something beautiful in all of that too, right? Like, sort of, it's the process. It's not the end result that, that's where memories occur. That's where, fulfillment really is. It's in the process. It's in the journey, and it's not in the end result. And I think that's why people are less and less happy, because they get to that end result and they still feel empty, and they were in such a hurry to get to that end result because they thought the end result was going to make them happy. They become very impatient, and they're in such a hurry that they're never actually aware of their environment. They're not taking in what's in front of them right now. They're not noticing the novelty in every single day because they're too busy. They're too distracted. They have to get all the boxes checked off in that day. And there's something to be said about checking off boxes and being organized. I mean, there is time for work to be done, but it's it's not all day as, some people do. In fact, I'm a firm believer that give yourself 4 to 5 hours of very productive time during the day, and spend, and believe me, if you actually made it productive, and if you actually worked and were in the moment, in the flow of your work, no matter what that work is. I don't care if it's tilling a field, or if it's writing, or if it's creating, or if it's, um, you know, being present in your board meetings, or leading your team, or whatever that might be. If you are actually very self-aware in the moment, you would be in the flow, and you would be doing some great work instead of working, 8, 9, 10 hours at your job, sort of being half there, half at home, half, on the golf course, half like whatever, searching the internet, you know. I truly believe that if we were more focused and more self-aware and more mindful, we would be doing exceptional work, and we would not have to work as much. And we could appreciate nature in days like Earth Day, and be out in nature. And we could spend more time with the people we love, and we could give more time to the people we love. Um, so, and we could sleep more. That's the other thing. That's one of my goals. And I would say that, yes, I have goals, but all my goals are leading up to my long-term vision, my why, my purpose. And I know to be a better human being and to function better during the day, I am working on my sleep habits. Um, yeah. So, and bringing it back to mindfulness, I mean, it's not that hard to be mindful. All we need to do is to notice new things in our environment. So when you walk outside your house today, like, can you notice the tree in front of your house? Is it budding right now? Is it not budding? Why isn't it budding? Is it an ash, or is it an elm, or is it, a maple? And um, yeah, I mean, to hear the bird song, it's spring right now. I mean, it's one thing I absolutely love is just listening to the birds in the morning and trying to discern which birds they are. Um, And okay, I have to say this because I was shocked. But the other morning, I was listening, sitting in silence, and I live by the river. I live by the Red River. Two rivers run through Winnipeg. One is red, one is called Assiniboine, and they meet at the Forks. Anyway, so I'm sitting here, and in the backyard is the river. And one of the most beautiful things I hear when I'm out at our lake, a freshwater lake just on the border of Manitoba and Ontario, when I'm out there, which is the most cleanest, you know, parts of nature I have access to, I would say, because it sits on crown land, is is the loons. I love nothing more than listening to the loons in the morning, sometimes in the evenings. And so I'm sitting in my my solitude one morning here in the city, and I hear a loon. And I'm thinking, okay, that cannot be a loon. I must be going crazy. And no, I heard it again. And I was like, what is going on? And so I asked a few people, and they said, yeah, if the lakes are still frozen, which most are, but the river is open and running, uh, they might just migrate to a river, sort of like a temporary stop before they hit the lakes. But that's the first time I've ever heard a loon in the city. So it makes me, you know, excited and hopeful that I might hear more loons. Anyway, but I digress, and that's something I do a lot, which is another reason why we need to spend more time alone and not being distracted through our phones so we can practice more dedicated focus. And quiet solitude is the only way you're going to do that, to disconnect and not touch a device. Um, so, which brings me to, a little bit of, I guess I can, let me share my vision that, and that would be, is to kind of rebuild community again for us. Whether I realize not everybody is, was brought up with religion, attached to religion, but community can be built on various other ways, right? So that could be, you know, just connecting with other people, within small groups within your city or your small town or whatever that might be. If you're all interested in a specific subject to, I mean, and that's what the internet's great for, right? Like we can search those terms and we can see if there's small groups. And because even when I work with individuals here, that's something that I do encourage them to do, is to step away from your busyness. And even if it's just joining a book club in your community, right? If you love books, doing that is can sometimes be enough. And a lot of people feel like they can't find, um, either they're new to a certain area, and my goodness, like we do have so many new immigrants all the time, but there's people that have lived in a certain area all their lives that are very lonely and are in need of friends. How old friends have either moved away, or friendships are lost or broken, and they're searching for a new friend. I mean, that can be obtained very easily as well. But you need to do some work in order to get there. It doesn't often happen. You need to, again, do some research, and find out what's possible in your area. But if you just go to your 9 to 5 job every day, same old, same old, same old, and again, expecting something different to come along, it's not going to happen. There is some effort that needs to be done. And, um, you know, I talk about this a lot. There, maybe you should be asking yourself, what do I need to do that's feeling slightly uncomfortable right now? Things that I don't want to do, but I know is going to allow me to reach whatever that goal is that steps you towards, your higher vision, your why. Um, and the goals need to be, measurable and obtained, like there needs to be a certain timeline, right, in order to make it more urgent, to give you more motivation, especially for someone who struggles to get motivated. You need to put deadlines on these things. Otherwise, there's no urgency to get it done. And you will just continue to default into that comfortable mode of um, mediocre. We can't um, allow ourselves to just stay in that mediocre and then complain about, not having something that we desire deeply or long for. It's just like I said, the 4 or 5 hours of dedicated work, that's that time where you do the dedicated work. But there's other times during your day, like if we actually structured our day well, that we realize there's this time to work, and there's a time to play, and there's a time to relax, and there's a time to connect. And that's what you know that's what's going to keep you from, you know I'm not going to say depression, but like just this low energy or this low mood. But some people do reach that point of depression because they stay there way too long. So I've said this before, and maybe it's a good time to mention it again, is that suffering is a very normal part of life. In fact, I think part of our problem is that we feel like we shouldn't be suffering, but suffering is very normal. But it's one side of this pendulum that a lot of people, go back and forth on. And, I like to describe that pendulum as one end of the pendulum is okay. Both ends of the pendulum have the two core emotions that really are the foundation of all these other feelings and emotions that we experience. You know, um, it's all sourced from love and fear. So, for example, if fear is one of the lowest, like frequencies, like the lowest frequency would be the emotion of love, put it that way. And the highest frequency emotion would be, did I say that right? The lowest is fear, the highest would be love. And those are the two ends of the pendulum, or you could say the continuum, whatever you want to say. But I like the idea of it being a pendulum because I see a lot of people where when they're sort of like in this frenetic state, like swinging a lot from, one end of the pendulum to the next. And they're on this roller coaster of emotions constantly. they're sort of like they 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 reach this state of wholeness and maybe pieces and love, and then they somehow I don't know, I don't think it's wholeness. I don't think it's, you know maybe it's the shiny object or whatever, or they think, maybe they're at their end goal and they thought they were going to find happiness and they didn't, so now they're swinging back again, and they're starting fear sets in again, and they swing the other way, when really the the middle ground there, what you're really searching for is, like, kind of physiologically, it would be called homeostasis. The body always goes back, or always wants to fall back into this homeostatic point where, there's emotionally, it's called maybe peace or contentment. But, like, when I talk about physiologically, I mean, like, without disease, or, just feeling good, feeling well. Um, so that's where we need to be. Maybe it sounds kind of boring, but it's not, because that's when you find true peace, wholeness, um, is that state. That's where, like, maybe we could just even call it like being full of gratitude, because you realize, I don't need to be high, high, high on this pendulum, and I don't want to be in fear, nor do I need to be in fear. A lot of people live with such fear, and it's like, fear of what? Like, what are you fearing? Are you fearing fail? I mean, that is mainly the answer, is fearing failure. um and failure comes in many different, shades, right? It could be shame, it could be guilt, it could be some identity crisis. um but, let's just go for um the basics, and be in complete gratitude of that, like, just the simple, simple things in life. That's all we need. Like I said, my best years were my university years, where, honestly, living in an apartment, IKEA furniture, probably a lot of it borrowed, um, and people say, yeah, it was the freedom. I'm longing for freedom. And I'm also really sick of hearing the term, if you hear, "Oh, what does freedom mean to you?" Like, you always hear these questions posed to different people. What does freedom mean to you? And I hear the answer so often of, freedom to me is being able to do what I want when I want. And I'm like, really? That's freedom? I don't know. Freedom to me is just pure austerity. Freedom to me is not being attached to any materialistic thing, or any idea, or any identity, because our identities are simply our, like, our ingrained beliefs of what we think we should be. you know it's just it's just um it's just this personality that we've taken up over the years, that we've been conditioned, you know to believe who we are. But we're just all different. We're all just pure energy. We're all just pure energy. And our identities are just these roles that we've played that we think we should be playing in our lives. Just like an actor, if you would take any actor, any really good actor, and tell them they have to play the role of, whatever, like even Seinfeld, to be Seinfeld all, that many years, I bet you, like, if you did it sort of like 14 hours a day, every day for years and years, and if you really played that role, I think, Jerry Seinfeld, I mean, if he's acting as a character, right, he wouldn't even know who Jerry really was anymore because it's just an identity that he played all his life. And we have to realize we're all like that. We can be or play any identity we want, and it's really important to not get attached to any identity. Whether that's your career or it's sort of you need to detach from that and just focus on more of your why and your vision and taking a step towards that vision every day in your life and knowing that there's no end to that. There is no end to your vision. It's built up, it's building on itself every single day by being more purposeful, by being more self-aware, by being in gratitude, by not going off after the shiny objects and just simplifying your life to the most basic things. Well, I do need to end there. Sometimes I put myself in these time constraints because I know I can go on and on. So I'm ending it there, and I hope this gives you a bit of hope, a deeper connection with yourself. And you know what? I do have a program actually that's all about that. If you want to look under my website, luellayonk.com, look for working with me and look under one-to-one coaching. And that's what my program really is helping you through that. Okay? Until next week, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.